Hello, Overwatch South Africa. Excuse me, that was very unprofessional. It's an awful night here in Joburg tonight, but hopefully the action game will keep us warm. Two teams today that we wouldn't say are necessarily heavyweights of the South African scene, but definitely two that could produce a very interesting game. Have come a long way in their own rights in the past year or so, and a couple of very recognizable names coming through in these rosters. My co-caster tonight is Terran Lord of Rage Quit Odyssey fame. How's it going?
I'm very excited for tonight. I think obviously, as you mentioned, it's a really close game potentially, and also it's yours and I first cast together. Not normally a duo that you'd expect, because we normally from the coaching side, so more of the analyst. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these two teams kind of match up, because I'm expecting them to run comps that they're more comfortable with. This is not Overwatch League. We're not expecting the meta comps. We're more expecting what are they good at. And I think throughout the course of the series we could see some adaptations, but for the most part it's going to be the same.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see from these two teams especially is because they both exist in an environment where they have been kind of studying kind of Overwatch at a macro level more than just a bunch of friends playing. So we'll definitely see some structure from them. We'll probably see them tending towards some comforts, as you say, but it should be really interesting to see how they interact. So we got a couple of spicy rosters here. Why don't you take us through the EEA Pangolins roster? What do we expect to see from them, considering you played them quite recently? Yeah,
and I think looking at this roster, no one particularly stands out. I think they're all really solid players. There's no one player that you say identify as the carry. What really stood out to me when we played against them was very much their team coordination, and also their ult rotations were really smooth against us. You've made it very difficult for us on Ilios. It ended up being the reason why we lost Ilios, was we lost that first fight and never could really get in there. But looking at Julius and Rafiki, maybe not necessarily the most known, well-known names in terms of South African Overwatch. I think Julius has been on cast before, same with Rafiki, but we haven't seen them as much, whereas more the likes of Elvenslayer and Hemisphere, very much Elven, not really a DPS, more we've seen them as a tank, but they've been in the Overwatch scene for quite some time now, so you're looking at them as more your kind of experienced players on this roster, keep them together. Same kind of with Bubbles and the support, also someone more known for the tank in terms of what we've seen before, and Solaris, who to me before our game against Pangolins was a completely new player, so not really sure exactly how they're going to match up today.
I mean, you can definitely say the Pangolins roster, there's some players there that you've seen around, you've seen them playing, you've seen them in matches, but maybe they're not quite as well known as, you talk about the Beastie Boys rosters and the, even the Overtime rosters that, are quite prominent within the community, but definitely players that have been around are definitely committed to this game. So it'll be interesting to see how they're gelling, how they're kind of working together. On the legacy side, we have a very similar type of roster. We talk about Scars played so many roles in this community, including producer caged quite a lot. But yeah, currently he's coming on the main tank for the side of Aki Legacy. A new role for him, having most recently been seen on the Hitscan DPS prior to this. Ataku, a kind of mainstay in this roster. On the off tank, she's been quite consistent on the D.Va in particular, and we'll definitely see them kind of having that synergy, because they've probably, I think they're the two longest lasting members of this team at this stage.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And then Demon Pegasus goes by Vacancy, but Demon Pegasus in game, so that's what we'll call him. Kind of came out of nowhere. Same with Zol. Kind of two kind of fresh players have been, kind of trying to prove their worth this year in particular. And this is really their opportunity to shine on the big stage. Zol coming in for Deadshot today. Traditionally Odysseys, wow, wrong team. Traditionally Legacy's flex support player being replaced by Zol, who today is in general main support. From what I hear, he's been doing quite well in Scrim, so we'll have to see how he kind of performs today. It's definitely an exciting one if you consider that they're kind of shifting such a mainstay of the roster out of that. Stevie and Parasox also quite experienced within the scene. Stevie and Old, Rage Quit Neon, an overtime player, took a big break, but now he's back, same role as before. And again, it's one of these players you want to see them kind of start to prove some consistency in this league, start to prove, what they can really do. And Parasox, another player that we've seen around, but we just want to see them, kind of show it. I mean, he's clearly been around. He's sitting in here with a season 1 competitive logo. Talk about hard stuck, am I right? But yeah, so definitely a team, two midweight teams in this division. You're not expecting them to lead the groups, and you say that definitely comes from you can see that in the group standings as well. Let me just pop them up real quick. We're sitting with, they are currently tied at the bottom of Group A. So this match is crucial in deciding who goes through in that 4th seed spot from Group A. We're sitting looking at, whoever wins this goes through, effectively. And they'll be playing the equivalence team, or the equivalent seeded team in the other group, which at this stage looks like it'll either be Dynacore Gaming or Eagle Eye Overtime. Dynacore Gaming's last game, of course, coming up against Beastie Boys again, whereas Overtime, I think, have GTG this week.
Yeah, that's
they might also have Beastie Boys again, now that I think about it. But definitely, like, this is the game. This is the game to really, this is the clutch game for you. This is the one you want to win, so you can get into that next stage of the competition, and start to come up against, the teams in the other group that you really want to be proving yourself again, getting that kind of like, experience in a year or so. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. A year or so, these players can be starting to knock on the door of the Beastie Boys teams, knock on the door of Team Gaming, Odyssey, those types of teams. And there's definitely players that could be good enough to do that. So very interesting to see that tonight.
Yeah, and you mentioned, when you look at the rest of the games in the group, Team Gaming, Odyssey, Beastie Boys, you expect those are games that they're going to lose. But now they're coming to this game. This is a winnable game for either side. At any time, at any point in these maps, something can turn. And especially with how, I'd say, volatile the meta has been recent, there's been more kind of emphasis on these teams like making these big comebacks. All of a sudden you're down 2-0, but then there's a reverse sweep coming up because something just clicks. And the South African Overwatch scene has always been that way, and I think even more recently we're getting a lot closer, where teams who you expect were like quote unquote worse Overwatch, a bit of a weird term to use, but these teams are really solid, and the kind of the foundations that are there, like as macros you mentioned. There's a lot of coaching going around, whether it be individual or team based, and it's made a big difference on our local scene.
Walk me through the maps that we have on schedule tonight. How do you think these teams are going to kind of interact on the maps we have coming up?
I think Oasis, you're probably going to see more leaning towards like brawlier styles. Like obviously you got your University. Gardens can be a bit of both. Some teams prefer the dive, some prefer brawl. City Center is probably more going to be dive orientated. Whereas then you look at, you move on over to Numbani and Dorado, and these have always, like throughout Overwatch, maybe with the exception of like the Watchpoint Gibraltar, have been the quintessential dive maps. Same can be said for Skies 1 and Lijiang. I think, when anyone thinks of Lijiang, it is the most known control map in Overwatch. Like Lijiang, King's Row is like probably the fight in hybrid, and like everyone knows them. Everyone wants to play those maps, and everyone kind of gets tired of them at some point.
Yeah, and I think coming into Oasis now, it's going to be really, really exciting to see how these teams end up, slamming their faces into each other. Teams coming out here on two comps that on the surface look a little bit familiar, but there's very, very broad tactical differences between them.
Yeah, we're looking more towards a brawlier style, like a rush coming out from Rage Legacy so far. The Reaper Sombra, Moria Lucio, you basically, as you mentioned, you just want to hit your head against a wall, basically. You kind of run them down. It's not as, brawly as when you have a Reinhardt in, because Reinhardt just brawls better than Winston. But you're still looking for those more quicker engagements. You have a bit of the high ground contest because you've got that Winston, got that D.Va in. But if you kind of start to play a bit split, it's going to be very difficult because Moria can only heal in such a short radius. Whereas you look on the side so far of Pangolins, you've got that Ana, got a pharmacy we're looking to see, and Hemisphere on the Symmetra probably going to TP out to something like the Tracer, Sombra, they're going to be looking here to take those multiple angles, basically pull apart that rush from Rage Quit Legacy and make their lives as difficult as possible, make themselves as unkillable as possible, especially for those tanks who are going to come under a lot of threat.
And I think that's what we're going to see. We're just having a slight technical issue right now. Apparently, Rafiki on the side of Pangolins is having connection issues at the moment. So we might see a sub even before the game starts. That wouldn't be a more traditional South African game, would it?
It's not quite the blur DC, but we'll see.
We don't talk about those.
I mean, we could also talk about the trigger DC, which every 10 minutes trigger's just gone.
Yeah, I mean, we should have more advertisers. They'd get so much time on the ZA broadcast.
Yeah, just to get those Cheese It Grooves ads going, man.
Yeah, so I think definitely you're going to see, we're just restarting. They're changing the server region, switching it to France because apparently Rafiki will have an easier time connecting to that one. But yeah, definitely I think we're going to see from the side of these two teams, Legacy are going to have to play very, very explosive if they come into that. I mean, we might not get the same map, but they're going to have to play very, very explosive there. And it's going to be all about the pacing of these fights. If they can get those nice, quick fights, quick, early, aggressive picks, then it puts them in a favored position. But if they don't, we know how devastating the DPS on the side of Pangolins can be with that Pharah and presumably like a Tracer or an Ash pick. And especially against a Rush-style composition, it can just be so, so brutal. We're actually coming out on the same map again, so we're on Oasis Gardens.
The RNG has blessed us. Every other time it's like new map. We start again. New map.
The map that you were playing is now map 3. Suffer.
It's like you lose 2 maps, unlucky, you don't get to see that map. I don't think we're going to see any changes. Neither team saw what the other were playing, so I'm pretty sure they're just going to stick to the same.
I mean, even if they did, I think reasonably they probably, hopefully they come in with the gentleman's law. You lose the same way again. No, but both teams coming out with very similar compositions. So this will just be, this map does kind of have some nice geometry that contributes to both. It'll be very, very good to see how they interact on these maps.
Especially that pharmacy and how well kind of the rush deals with that. Because dealing with fire when you're playing this kind of comp and you don't have that McCree counter is going to be doing.
Yeah, well, they're coming out, getting some nice early spam through here, but not really much of a fight breaking out just yet. They're just kind of poking, staging right now, looking for their kind of targets. It's going to be very, very explosive when it finally does break out, and here it comes breaking out. Duelist under a lot of pressure in the early stage, and Demon managing to get the pick early. Para falling low, but this does put them in a position to potentially still kind of clean up this fight. Duelist coming back up, and Zol dropping down. That puts Legacy in a very, very dangerous position, but they do get the first point capture here. Will they be able to hold on to this point without their Moira? A little bit of a tough ask, and Elven Slayer and Hemisphere already doing all that poke damage with the Pharah and the Soldier, showing exactly what this comp is all about. Point's still under Legacy's control now, but you would expect before too long it'll be a Pangolins point.
We've started to see a good start there to fight for Legacy, blowing up the Winston, the ideal target, but then things kind of started to get a bit fragmented from you. Started to see them splitting up a little bit, and because of that, then the Pharmacy and that Soldier really putting in so much damage, it made it basically impossible for Zol to really keep up. He gets picked off, your Duelist gets res, and from there, they're at the disadvantage.
Compositional switch coming in now. Stevie switching off the Sombra onto the Soldier. Not a very common pick we see with a rush composition, but maybe they're just feeling that they can put in a little bit of poke to kind of balance out the damage so that they can clean up these fights a little bit better. As they start to come in here, Elvin coming out with the barrage, not managing to get anything, but Hemisphere also following that up. Now Legacy very, very split up and falling immediately. Just this poke too much from the side of Pangolins.
It's not the worst fight. You're looking at this coming from Rage Quit Legacy. You lose that first fight usually at Elder's disadvantage, especially making a swap. And we've seen also now the Reinhardt swap coming out. So some swaps, but ults were used. You see that the Visor and the Barrage, two kind of high impact ults, but also can be built up pretty quickly. You can see that Barrage coming in this fight if the fight goes long enough. But with Stevie there now, as well as Zol, you're probably going to see a bit more pressure on that Pharah.
It's a weird switch though to see a Brawl coming into a comp that you're struggling against a Pharah. taking then a slower comp to engage this, and you can see they're already getting hard disrupted here. So much pressure coming in from this team, but a big Death Blossom coming out from Demon here, managing to take out the Nanoed Soldier. That puts them in such a good position to take this fight. There's 3 up in this fight now, and with control of the point, you know, without any kind of substantial contest from Pangolins here, they get that point more or less for free, and they get the opportunity to stagger. They, however, do not take that as they clean Rafiki and Bubbles up quite quickly.
Yeah, and not the biggest ult investment, you know, to Blossom beats two you know, high impact ults, but you're now sitting on that bomb, potentially looking at Visor because now CV's in the position, but like Demon Pegasus there, like somehow managing to sneak his way in as a Reaper, getting that Death Blossom off, you know, not with that D.Va defense matrix over him, made it very easy for him to take down the targets.
Ooh, Primal Rage coming out very early here from Duelist. Will he regret coming into this tight room? He's already dropping super low, but they do manage to get Parasox in the trade there. And Duelist actually managing to get out, stabilize here, and a Barrage coming out, that opens up the fight again for Pangolins here. Legacy still in control of the point, but again, one of those things you really don't expect them to be able to hold on to it very long. Scars with a little bit of a Hail Mary charge there, not able to really land anything. We've seen so many of those swing fights, but not today. But they are getting a nice little bit of stall, nice little bit of tick on point. But, you know, we're looking at a situation here where we have 1, maybe 2 more fights left in this round. You know, we have to see these ults getting value from Rage Quit here if they want to keep this going. And especially now that they've kind of stabilized the ult economy after a big compositional switch.
That Visor is going to be really important. You know, window as well, maybe combo it up, and it's going to be a lot of damage. Very difficult for the tanks to kind of peek it, but they're coming into this fight.
Huge anti coming through, and that's devastating. Coming out early, and we're already getting 2 from the side of Legacy. They're gonna have to touch now. Only 2 seconds left on the clock. Zol managing to get a touch at the last second, and it's 2 for 2 now in this fight. Can they swing it back in their favor, Legacy? Just so many Qs going left, right, and center. The humanity. And this Visor finally coming out from Stevie now, managing to get a pick off, and Demon managing to follow that up with another. Are Legacy swinging this fight now? Are they kind of bringing it back from the brink? Demon on having the Deadeye ready as well. Will he use it here to make sure that his team win this fight? Nano coming out onto Duelist here. That's a lot of damage coming into this backline with the Nanoed Monkey, especially with no healing left on board for Legacy, with the healers only getting back now. And now it's just a scrappy fight. Who can focus their targets better? And it looks like Pangolin's getting the advantage in this stage, with Elvin putting down so much damage on this Pharah and almost entirely uncontested at this stage. Scar's last live on point for Legacy now, and with this Barrage online, you don't expect to be lasting for long. And that's, although it ended up being by the seat of their pants, extremely squeaky bum time, Pangolins managing to swing out that round.
And that Nate, just from the honor there, making sure that Legacy come into that fight as much. You know, the big person you're looking at getting value out of the fight is Stevie. Taken out almost instantly. He's not allowed to use that fight. So yes, he comes back, does get value over, but you want to be opening up that fight before it gets, you know, this kind of scrappy fight. Your Demon Pegasus, they're really putting in a lot of work, building up High Noon in a fight, like kind of a scrappy fight like that, really coming up clutch, but in the end, it just wasn't enough for Legacy. They started the round just didn't really help them, and now we're kind of seeing mirror comps.
Yeah, mirror comps, but Pangolins going with the more commonly seen Symmetra style composition here, and actually coming out with a Zarya here. Oh, never mind, I'm completely wrong. They're just playing with a Zarya instead of a Mei or a D.Va. So that's a kind of interesting matchup here, and especially with their McCree arriving quite late, could end up swinging the fight into Legacy's favor. Nice wall out from him to get back into it. And Demon taking this off angle that we saw get so much value in the first round. Not quite getting as much value right now, but ooh, that is a devastating stun. Well played, Elvin there, opening up that fight tremendously well for his team. Pangolin should be able to clean up that first fight with Scars going down immediately off the back of that.
Yeah, and there's some TP there, while like wasn't exactly ideal. You know, Alvin saw switch onto the Junkrat, then the McCree, so it's very late into that fight. But because they were able to get their position advantage, Legacy weren't really able to take control of that space without that DPS being there. And once Alvin gets back, they had the advantage of those resources, and because it's Zarya in that later stage of the fight, she just put himself so much damage.
Here from the side of both sides actually. But without the D.Va on the side of Pangolins, you'd argue that the Fire Strike's a little bit more scary on the side of Legacy. Managing to pick out Duelist here, even though he managed to push past that window, they're in a good position now to take this fight. Lots of high-value ults being committed here from Pangolins, and very little value coming out of them all in all. Ooh, that's a big freeze though. They might be able to get some value off of that.
Seems a bit of overcommitment though. I think Legacy looking to clean this up. Despite the Grav and Blizzard looking strong so far.
Oh, juicy Shadow Scars, putting the 3 of the remaining Pangolins players on the ground and ensuring the flip comes over. A very drawn-out fight, though, so that's pretty good for Pangolins if you're looking at a recontest situation here. But with all those ults committed here, and Power already 40% of making back that beat to catch up to the side of Bubbles on the Lucio Pangolins, this looks like a fight that could presumably, if ults go their way, go in the favor of Legacy again.
Yeah, it's going to be potential big Blizzard coming out here.
Nice Blizzard coming out here, actually making it extremely difficult for them to get value out of that Deadeye there, and opening up that fight tremendously again. You say that they probably, at this stage, matched the odds due to the fact that, they had that little bit of advantage and they need to make sure they win this. But, Zol going down there, that could be a little bit of a tricky one if Pangolins are able to re-engage quickly, but Solara's going down there as well maybe slows that down just a bit.
Yeah, the nice thing about getting that pick off onto Zol, he doesn't get any more ult charge. He's still coming up to that window, so they can at least come up with that in mind. And you see already Legacy posturing quite defensively without their Baptiste, probably potentially giving up a lot of space here.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see both teams are going to come in with the windows, come in with beats here, and there could potentially be such a devastating fight both ways. Like, nice wall coming out from Stevie there to slow the fight down and give his team a chance to outlast that window. And with the window going back in the other to the side of Legacy here, it gives them the opportunity to push really, really hard in this position. Ooh. Opened up there, Hemisphere getting 2 very valuable picks. That slight split there, opening up the fight tremendously well for Pangolins there, with Legacy not able to get any value out of that window at all. Ult still being committed by Legacy, but you'd say probably a little bit of a dodgy commitment of the Deadeye there, as they should probably be looking for the regroup here. Still stalling out, they still control the point, so they're definitely in a situation where should they come in with a strong next fight here, it is 1-fight territory for them. But a little bit of an overcommitment there from Legacy. Now Pangolins firmly in control of the ult economy again.
You've got to give great credit there to Rafiki and Hemisphere on that flank here. They recognize we can't really push through main. They have a window there. Let's go on the flank and pull so many resources. They didn't even get punished for it in the end. And you're getting off the big Blizzard from Hemisphere. He's able to get the picks, but Stevie coming up with that Blizzard can be a game changer.
Yeah. Quick cross here for Legacy, but they actually managed to catch them with the grab there. Nice wall up from Stevie, stops the Deadeye from getting immediate value, but still a very, very precarious position for Legacy here, and Scars going down doesn't make that any safer. Two down for Legacy already, and the Diva Mech. It should be a relatively simple cleanup now for the side of Pangolins here, and this is a dangerous one for them. That fight was slow enough that it's now put them in a position where they can't get a full recontest here. It's 96% on the board for Pangolins, and Scar's going to have to stall this out quite efficiently to make sure his team can get back in this. Otherwise, this will be going the way of Pangolins. Ooh. Murid Mail's coming out here, but you have to say that really, really favors the side that has 5 people on the point. Stevie managing to stall out quite nicely here. They are juggling the point quite nicely, but they have to deal with Solaris here if they want to be able to clean up in a kind of one at a time type of scenario. They have to get that healing output so they can't just out-sustain these engagements. And they're really not managing to clean this up right now. It's just Pangolins in control, dominance on the point right now. And with this Deadeye just to clean up just in case, won't even need it. Pangolins take this first map.
But more structure we're looking at there from Pangolins. They take those fights. They look to be, even if they're not necessarily together, they're going in at the same time. You look at that flank. It wasn't hit, the Hemisphere and Rafiki going in alone. They managed to hit it where, the Reinhardt's there as well, so that they can't really just turn on them and kill them instantly. This is a big shadow coming out of those guys. You made sure that this point was theirs, but even though, this fight took a long time, drawing out with that Blizzard and that Grav, it meant that it wasn't an easy retake from Legacy. They had to invest ultimates. They didn't have that ult advantage really going at any point there. You looked at maybe if Stevie gets that Blizzard online a little bit sooner, then that when they do get that Grav out, then he can kind of counter that. But at the end, it's Blizzard versus Blizzard, and you don't really win that when, as you mentioned, it's 5 versus 1.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see, I think very much what defined that round. You talk about the big Sky Shadow, but there was also, on that first round, a big Demon Death Blossom. We saw, a nice Visor out from Stevie there. So we saw some big plays coming out from Legacy, and clearly not, completely out of their depth in this game. But I'd say we saw a lot more just strong consistency out of Pangolins. They played really, really nicely there to just keep control of that round, even when it looked like it might not be going their way. You know, that window comes to mind immediately where they just kind of pincered it. Even though they don't have that Diva to eat the Fire Strike to mitigate some of that damage, they were able to just devalue it completely just through good rotation and good play. So interesting to see where the series goes from here. Legacy seem to be favoring a more kind of aggressive, brawly style, whereas Pangolins seem to be favoring, seem to be a little bit more flexible in that regard. And I mean, you can imagine that kind of, with such experienced players on the side of Pangolins, that does lend itself to being a little bit more flexible with that. But it's going to be interesting. The next two maps are Numbani and Dorado, and two very traditionally divey maps. That's extremely hard to take those maps with a brawl style.
I mean, we always kind of joke around, especially like on maps like Dorado, you see a Reinhardt sitting on payload and he's just saying, it's like, what do I do? While the team is kind of trying their best to help him do something, but he's sitting there waiting for something to come to him, because even if you try and rotate to those high grounds, it takes so long that by that point the other team's on the other high ground, and now you have to rotate again, and it's like a back and forth that just never ends. Maybe we'll see more of that Russia where it's a bit stronger than the Reinhardt. At least Winston can contest his high grounds a little bit better. Obviously Primal Rage able to sustain a little bit more than Shadow. It's going to be difficult to land a Shadow on a dive, for example. And already we're starting to see Legacy on that brawl with a double hit scan. It's possible, but they're playing up against it. You're coming up against this dive, and it's a double hit scan. Kind of mirror. Yes, it's not the same PS, but when you're looking at double hit scan, when they have the positional advantage, you favor them a lot more, and that's what Pangolins are going to come out with. And on top of that, you feel like the DPS probably on the side of Legacy are going to get more pressure because there is a Winston Diva.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to say, I'd say the first point is probably the most worrying about this. Like, how do you bridge those two high grounds? They're so far apart, and you can't really just allow them to spam down at you while you contest points. It just won't work on this type of points. So, second and third point, you have a little bit more option on how to rotate and path with Brawl, but this first point in particular is so oppressive if you're a non-mobile composition like this.
We're starting to see the rotation is coming out, though.
Yeah, they're coming up, they're taking control of this high ground. You're probably going to see them try and take control of this high ground to get value out of Stevie and Vacancy here, but big anti coming out from the side of Solaris again. He's been hitting these fairly consistently, and that's lamp house already for Zol. If they aren't able to rotate this cleanly, it could be a very, very quick fight for the side of Pangolins, and it turns out like that. Both hit scans down already. It's going to be so hard for them to bridge this. Like, they're going to either have to kind of park them all off the high ground, or they're going to have to, go back to the drawing board. This is just not a nice matchup for them, and their rotation too slow there to really get the kind of control of that map.
And you can just see like the strength. I mean, you look at the tank ult charge and the DPS ult charge. Obviously, the support is a bit better in terms of Legacy because they take more damage, but you're coming up with such important ults. Bob Advisor, whereas you're not even close to a high noon Advisor on the side of Legacy, and Solaris. Two big anti-nades. The first one kind of sets it up, puts a lot of pressure on, and then the second one gets that kill. So we're going to see, can Taku negate that?
Big anti again, coming down, putting so much pressure onto Zol already here. The visor coming out from Hemisphere here, but Legacy managing to cut this out. As I say that, immediately Zol going down to the tactical visor here, and with the Nano Monkey going in there, that should be just a relatively clean fight here for Pangolins.
Monkey going down, it shouldn't be too bad, especially with these late staggers. It means that the Monkey will be back in time, and we're just seeing time and time again Solaris on this Honor getting nade off nade. I mean, that's the fourth nade so far. I mean, I don't even know what the average anti people per anti is at this point, but it must be around 3 or 4. It's pretty crazy. We're seeing so much value from this Honor, and it's made these fights so easy for Pangolins.
We need to be seeing more value from the Diva on the side of Legacy in this case, though. Ataka usually such a consistent player for a team here, but really just getting caught out by these nades in the early stage of the fight here. Solaris being so aggressive with them, and it's working out for his team. They're putting in so much uncontested pressure right now. Like, if we had one of those scrim codes where we could see the stats, of how much damage they've taken at this stage, I doubt that Elvin and Hemisphere have even been low enough to warrant, real concern from the healers at this stage. There's just no pressure on them, and they're pumping in the damage here.
Yeah,
Lots of ults coming in for Legacy here, and this could open this fight up a little bit better, especially with this this visor and this window coming out here.
And very good start. I mean, actually good charge from Scars on that bomb, making sure that it really didn't get any better. The value from Bob kind of negated so far.
Yeah, and Deadeye coming out from Demon Pegasus here. A little bit of a precarious position here. They need to get this bubble down if they're going to look for any value from it. But again, here, they're getting stuck on the low ground, and now the ult's coming back at them. So hard for them to recontest this. And with Ataku out of the mech there, having to use bomb to remech there, it's just not a position where they're able to mitigate this damage coming out from the side of Hemisphere and Elven at all. In such control of these fights, and again, even with a strong opening into that fight, Legacy just not able to make anything of this because they can't just isn't working for this environment.
Yeah, and this is you're using all these ultimates just to take space. You're not even using them to get to point. And by the time you've kind of reached a stage where you can maybe contest them, they're just coming at you with ults, and you have nothing. I mean, they invested 6 ults into that fight.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the wholesale changes coming out for this, mainly just to stall, I'd imagine. But, you know, with Rally and Nano online for the side of Pangolins here, I don't really think there's a way back into this fight for Legacy, barring some sort of individual pop-off miracle, the likes of which we've never seen. And immediately here, Ataku going down, losing the mech here, and the Rally coming out. It's so oppressive on points, especially against things like a Tracer and a Wrecking Ball here that can't actually pump out enough damage to break that armor effectively. Stuns coming out here, really, it's desperation stations here for Legacy. A tick on the board, but you know, unless they can really pull out something special in that in the defensive round, it's looking like a second map going Pangolins' way.
Yeah, and even though like maybe Brawl is stronger, you know, on the defense, obviously you can set up a bit easier. I mean, naturally Brawl has always been stronger in defense because when you're in control of the point, you don't have to move as much, and that's where Brawl kind of gets weaker. And what we saw, but you know, Pangolins can say, I don't care if you have a Reinhardt on the high ground. You know, we can go for your support, or if you're all grouped up together, you're gonna have to come to us because we can just sit on point. You have barely a tick to work with. We can just force point with something like a Tracer, and something has to respect that. And if they try with even more, then maybe we see like something like an Ashe. You're sitting on the high ground. As soon as something drops down, then it just has so much more value. And I really would like to see something different. It is going to be different coming up for Legacy. We're seeing this more kind of anti-dive bunk, this Creator with the Bat Brig and the Orisa Diva. It's better, but is it going to be enough against Pangolins? Will they be able to sustain that pressure long enough to kind of hold out for 4 minutes?
I think what you're looking at here, again, in this fight, like in this situation, you're very much looking at Ataku to be the difference here. You know, fundamentally, you're thinking, okay, this comp actually, it interacts quite well for Legacy. You know, you can push back the dive. The Trace is going to struggle with the Torb and the Brig. You know, you're maybe going to be a little bit more stable with the static shield, so the nades don't perhaps hit you as much. But on the other end of it, if you're not able to mitigate the damage out from that Pharah, if you're not able to make sure those antis don't hit when your shields are down, it's going to be a very tough hold for Legacy here. What do you think about the setup?
I think it's a bit dangerous. Like, you give quite a lot of space. You allow like the Tracer to go behind, the Pharmacy to spam in, and yes, you can hold a pretty bunkered down position, but it just leaves you like very open to multiple angles.
Oh, and there's that anti we were just talking about coming straight out, and the Scar's already down. Again, panic stations for Legacy here. Ataku having to touch an already out of mech here. This is just not what you wanted, Legacy. Too much space given to the enemy team. Cleaned up. Sent home. GG, Pangolins. That's 2-0 up.
And that's just... It feels like, obviously Legacy, they're trying to play the comforts. And, that's not always the worst thing, but it just feels like they're either a confusion as to what to do a lot of the time. We see them, they get their rotation down, they get at least some kind of space with their ultimates, but then from there, it just, nothing really seemed to happen after that. They kind of sit on point, and then the visor comes out, and Parasox goes down, and then everyone just kind of follows suit. And yes, their defense, they lost the first fight, but you're saying to yourself, maybe if we have at least a bit more time, we cap first point, then we don't have to rush as much on that defense. We can just say, okay, if we lose this fight, at least let's make it as slow as possible. But they just didn't have that ability. They had to win that fight, and more, because playing against a dive which has something like Nano Monkey, Nano Pharah, a pulse bomb that can just break you apart in seconds. It's just such a difficult ask. And now moving to Dorado, it's going to be will Legacy, more go towards that bunker again, or will they try and force the brawl?
And if you're looking at maps, like Dorado probably a little bit friendlier for it than Numbani, right?
Yeah, it definitely is, because at least you can force teams to come, especially if you get caught, you got card push from the beginning. Hybrid maps, you have to cap that point. But here, you can at least say we can force card, and eventually, something has to come to you if they're not winning that fight. If you can survive on point long enough, a diva, a tracer, something like that has to at least meet you on card. Otherwise, you just get free card push the entire way. But even then, you're still looking at a disadvantage, because while you're pushing that card, they can envelop you. If they're looking at that Ashe Soldier once again, Ashe on one side, Soldier on another, on looking for those nanties. It's just so difficult to deal with, because then you have a shield one way and a diva basically is your only other option to negate that damage. But will she be able to do that effectively? She only has so much defense matrix, and with how much Otaku has struggled so far to kind of negate everything, it's not looking amazing for Legacy so far.
No, I think you really have to say that those antis need to stop hitting your team. Sorry, those nanties. If you're going to be swinging this game back into your favor. At this stage, it's just a situation where every fight Solaris is just getting a gigantic anti-nade. He's been so impactful with the way that they've been able to shape these fights. And again, from the side, you're looking at two very consistent DPS players coming out with Elvin and Hemisphere on the side of Pangolins, and with that type of setup, they're always going to deliver. They're going to give you the goods. Down goes the HP, and it can't come back up.
Again, it's going to be the brawl this time with a Sombra, so a little bit more punished towards that monkey, especially if he drops down to point.
I think especially you might also be looking at, the Diva taking a lot of pressure from this, and the EMP being quite impactful for just busting open team fights. But it has to be something they use quite aggressively here to make sure that they win this fight. And actually, Stevie going straight for Hemisphere there, getting the early pick off there, putting his team in a good position to be able to just taxi this card forward a little bit. Pangolins trying to juggle the point here, Duelist and Rafiki alternating on points, but a lot of damage coming out. Will they be able to hold this type of sustained engagement, especially with Stevie harassing them in the backline? Already 60% of this EMP could be something to clean up this fight if it goes long enough for the side of Legacy, who now are making their way through the bridge here, getting surrounded a little bit, but still in a position where Hemisphere going down again. That puts them in a position where they're really just, this card's gone so far without any real contest so far, and with them playing still quite grouped, a little bit split up now, but in general still quite grouped. It's something I can definitely look to kind of clean up. Ooh, trade coming in with Vacancy going down on the side of Legacy here, which means without new McCree, a lot of that damage kind of starts to fade away, and with that Primal coming out for Duelist, it's something that could potentially use to shake up this fight. Oh, fat EMP there, opening up this fight. 5-man EMP allows them to come back into this fight and push a lot of damage out through this window that Zol's just put down. The Bob coming out, maybe enough, but I don't think so at this stage, as they've just put so much pressure in here. Scar's pushing out a little bit too aggressively here, opening up the opportunity for Hemisphere to get into this visor. 4 people down. Goodness gracious, we should be seeing that highlight for months.
Hemisphere saying, I've been kept quiet this map by Stevie. Stevie just, basically putting on the Thanos glove, fine, I'll do it myself kind of thing. But then Hemisphere coming in, Stevie's down now. I can do my work, and ends up with a 5k in that fight. And yes, from Legacy, it's better. They almost get that card there. It's in a decent spot, but now they have to make sure that it's clean, because they don't have that card that they can just force.
Ooh, Legacy actually wrapping underneath Pangolins here, forcing them off that high ground nice and early. I like this rotation. It forces them to be able to just come in and put them on on the ground where they can fight them. And the bomb coming out into the fountain for Rafiki. I'm sure that wasn't what he's looking for, but that's a boon for Legacy in this fight. Even with the rally coming out. Scars going down there will not be ideal, especially with the Taka losing mech as well and Lamp having already been used. This is panic stations for Legacy now, entering that fight so well to shape it out, but not really managing to do anything with that, and not actually pushing any resources into it either.
Yeah, at least you say, okay, we got Bomb, we got Rally. Rally, notorious as that ult that just wins fights, because you can't kill things when Rally exists. Armor is just crazy, especially, on the side of Legacy, you may be looking at the Diva and Sombra for negating all the damage, but now you've basically 6 ults. This is the fight that you say to Legacy, this is the one we need to win.
Bob coming out now, and with that nano still online here, they could potentially put a lot of damage on that fight. Big EMP down, and Shadow coming out immediately after, but that anti coming out from Solaris again, opening up this fight for the side of Pangolins. Even with Rafiki going down, the health pools are not looking good for Legacy now. Scars desperately low, and with this team so split up again, this is not what you want if you're playing this brawl. Ooh, but Tactical Visor shut down. That charge is taking Hemisphere completely out of the fight, and Legacy, I hesitate to say it, but it looks like they may be able to clutch out point one here.
Yeah, and it's just like very fragmented. You kind of have everyone, your Reinhardt away from your entire team, but that card push that they got, it kind of forced a bit of panic from Pangolins, but the fight still goes on.
Again, it's a fight that's dragging on a little bit now, and with both the supports for Legacy going down and both the DPS online for Pangolins, this could be a situation where they play it patiently enough and they're able to swing this fight. Very difficult for Legacy to sustain at this point, and still 0.6 meters from the capture point. Pangolins swinging this fight. Everything's so low. Parrot just getting back onto point now, and 1v3 as a lonely Lucio on points versus a scary Brig, Ashe, and D.Va. It's not looking good. Parrot 0.02 meters off that crucial first point cap, and the rally coming out. It looks like it's over here for Legacy, and it's just a kind of sign of what might have been. The kind of fight structure just fell apart completely in this fight for them.
It's starting so well. Like, you can see they're starting these fights. They have the idea of what they want to do, but as that fight starts to develop, when it gets to more of these 4v4 situations, yes, the picks do go Legacy's way, but Pangolins have kind of that calmness to, this is what we need to do, and they execute it, and maybe that's what we're looking at, is that experience from the likes of Elvin, Hemisphere, Bubbles, those callers within there, like saying, don't worry guys, we've got this, let's do what we need to do. Is Legacy, it doesn't feel like there's that much cohesion once it gets to those fights.
Yeah, little bit of panic in the late stages of these fights, and you can see that coming out. And it's like you see them, they enter these fights really nicely, but Elvin backs up, takes that control of the arch, and just sits there for the entire fight uncontested. No D.Va push, no potential Lucio push, not even any substantial poke outs taking off that high ground, and they just played that so well to just patiently know these are our resources. This is what we can do with these resources. We can just sit back, we can give them a little bit of control of cart, we can juggle the cart, give them 5 meters here, 6 meters here, and then eventually when it gets to gates, we can juggle it long enough that our team can get back and we can win this fight. Zol and Para going down here. Zol, we talk about this as a little bit of a defining game for him, something that he potentially could have used to kind of stake his claim for this flex support spots with Deadshot out of the lineup today. And with him going down early in that fight, first in that fight in fact, alongside Parasox, it's just not a good position for their team to leave their team in.
Yeah, no, it puts them again. Yes, they've got the card basically in the first, but there's still that pressure of we need to win as many fights as we can.
Early sleep coming out from Solaris here, but the bubble should mitigate any kind of pressure that's that Pangolins would have been able to push out there. A rush spawn camp coming out here. I kind of like this because they're going to have to whittle. They're going to be able to whittle down a little bit of this time bank off Pangolins and perhaps get back into this fight a little bit. But the Taku going down, this Pharah is going to be so devastating. And another fat anti from Solaris. Where did they find this guy? This is just a complete deconstruction of every team fight for Legacy by just this one anti-nade just coming in and just kind of absolutely separating them.
Yeah. I mean, from Legacy, it's not the worst. So you're going for that spawn camp. You ideally want to be holding for longer, but it gives you time to come back. You have another fight, but coming into a barrage, it's dangerous. Getting that pick onto Rafiki, it's nice, but you still got a long way to go.
It's nice awareness from Stevie there to realize where he could capitalize. And on the side of Legacy using this to kind of get back into this fight, if they get this payload stopped at bridge here, it could be potentially a fight they could come back into. Scars, however, overextending a little bit, and that puts them at a disadvantage now, having lost their main tank and losing that engagement potential, losing that kind of strong kind of separation tool with the Winston bubble, which allows you to cut off a lot of the healing and damage from a side like Pangolins. It's going to be really tough for them to get back into this fight now until Scars gets back. Elvin getting all the way behind them there, and this barrage is looking spicy. I'm worried for this team. Oh, EMP coming out from Stevie in counterplay. what a play there to make sure that the side of Pangolins is just not able to get off that potentially devastating ultimate. And 2 minutes down here, they still have it at Archer. Even if they lose this fight, they potentially get another one if they juggle the point correctly. And Ulf's starting to come online. This is something that, now with control of a very narrow space, they could potentially take very, very good advantage of.
Yeah, and vacancy going down, that's very dangerous. That's a big ult already gone, and another anti-command to Otaku. She gets slapped up, could be punished.
Oh, and that's the beat gone for Parasox, hitting a mine on the way down. Hitting the visor on the way down. Zol as well. That's both support ults for Legacy just gone in a heartbeat, and that's absolutely not what you want in this aggressive rush style composition. Having the tank ult here is going to be nice to come back and recontest, but you need those support ults to sustain your engagement, especially when you're dealing with this much spam.
Yeah,
with Para managing to touch you.
But I think it's a bit early. Like the recontest could have come a bit later, but ult's committed. Otaku going down.
Another big Death Blossom coming out from Demon here, opening up this fight for Legacy. Both supports and the soldier out of this fight, so it should be stabilized for Legacy now. But again, you only have this Primal Rage online in an environment where the Primal Rage might not be your most useful ultimate here, especially with this barrage coming in. You have to be thinking we need to be getting some ults to make sure we sustain these fights. And, with both of your supports having used their ults at the same time and died at the same time, it's very, very dangerous here. And without that Sombra to slow down the fight in the way they were before, I can see Pangolins just coming in here extremely aggressive and trying to take this out.
You say stuffed into a small room. Perfect for a Pharaoh Barrage. Is looking for it. Pops it.
Good trades here for Legacy, though, with the Ana and the Pharaoh going down quickly, getting the quick 1-2 punch on the Amaris, but and looking like they're stabilizing the fight. 30 seconds left on the clock. This could be what swings this game for them. Puts them back on the road to a potential reverse sweep. 18 seconds now. Pangolins are going to have to touch. They do have good ultimates here with this Visor and this Minefield coming in and potentially this Nano into this fight. But they have to get in quickly, and they have to make sure that they're able to mitigate the value that Stevie's Tactical Visor can get. Otherwise, this looking good for Legacy.
Yeah, and really, Sombra being found out could be a bit of an issue, but Visor already early from hands as well as the mines.
Ooh, that Scar's going down early, and with that Visor up, taking out 2, it could be something potentially devastating for the side of Legacy here. Visor not able to actually get value here with the Diva and the Soldier pushing really hard up on him, and this looks like a fairly efficient cleanup for the side of Pangolins here. A little bit of hesitance in the engagement for Legacy really ends up costing them in this fight. The fight that could have potentially brought them back to the series, the hack coming out for Alvin here onto Scars, beat comes out onto him, but it's really, really difficult to sustain as a wrecking ball against an uncontested Sombra. And really, it's stall stations here for Legacy, and I don't think they're getting back into this. Even with this Visor coming out from Zol here, I just don't think they have the means to put that back in, especially with Bubbles putting him back into spawn. That's not what you want to see from your Moira player, and that will be the series for Pangolins. Signs of life from Legacy, but unfortunately, Pangolins just showing with the experience and the quality they have on their side, they'll be sealing their path into the knockout stages.
Yeah, and a big thing, we talk about the flexibility, and that's where Pangolins I think really shine. Not necessarily only in the comps, but kind of the way that they approach those T fights. It's like to say, okay, we're down in these fights, but we can still win them. We can still take the zone. We have the means, and you're going into that last fight. You're panicking now as Pangolins. It's like you're full hold, and now you're about to get even fuller hold, and you start to panic in the situation. It gets to overtime, but it never really felt like Pangolins were stressing in that team fight. You got that touch from Elvin, and then the mines come in, gets the pick. Visor buys so much room, and as soon as that Visor comes out from Stevie, he's shut down immediately. He's not afforded any kind of space to really bring that fight back. And you've got Pangolins really shining tonight, proving that the stamp that they want to be the team in the playoffs. They want to be able to potentially make a low bracket run. Yes, it's difficult because going through a low bracket, it's a lot more games than something like the upper bracket. But as we see, a team like Atlanta Reign in Overwatch League, they did it. They went through all those teams, and coming out where you expected them potentially to lose them. Maybe Pangolins, could they be an upset? Who knows?
Yeah, I think, especially with what we've seen today, very, very solid team, very, very drilled in what they're trying to do, and so consistent. I mean, you see in the cards from that last game, Hemisphere with 78% of elims there, putting down such consistent, just stable damage. And, like, if you're drilled and your tanks are making space, your supports are keeping things up, like, all you have to do is click those buttons, make use of the space you're afforded. And you have to say, the DPS from Pangolins here today really, really did shine in that kind of role where they could kind of exploit the space that they were allowed to play in. From this game though, who would you say your player of the match is?
I'm honestly very tempted to give that to Solaris. I think those anti-nades, when you look at them, and yes, maybe not always setting up kills, but it slows down those team fights from Legacy. You look to see every time that nade on Numbani, they can't rotate to their high ground because now they're naded. And then because they're naded, there's a dynamite coming in, so they have to kind of reduce that pressure. And I think his nanos as well kind of catch time into. You're looking at it, he's consistently building up those nanos. He's never really dying in these team fights before those fights starting. And it's really crucial that your flex support's up, making sure that your Winston is alive. So it's rare that we see these flex supports, but I think he deserves it today. Really, really performing unbelievably.
Yeah, I think honestly, we talk about the tempo control and taking use of the spaces that they were given, and Solaris was just the epitome of tempo control on the side of Pangolins tonight. The antis slowing down and opening up opportunities in the fight there, and those nanos so perfectly timed to just capitalize on the engagements for the side of Pangolins. And I've just seen coming in here in our Cast Live channel is that apparently I'm the stinkier of the two casters. So I did shower this morning, guys, but
I mean, Pale has good opinions, man. I
don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, it happens.
Who?
Blur's camera maybe even thinking about that wanting to hide its face.
Oh goodness. No, but yeah, I think definitely a really impressive game from the side of Pangolins here, showing an extremely consistent, extremely refined playstyle, and a really good amount of flexibility there to really take control of team fights when they were given the opportunities. And that's really, in this situation where you're coming into a game that could be quite close, could be quite contested, that's really, really what you're looking to do in this game. You're looking to put down a marker of authority. You're in control of this game. You're the ones that want to be taking this to the next level, and they did. They pushed really, really nicely there and put them in a really strong position to actually just take that game.
Yeah, and just you're not really allowing Legacy to play their game. That's always the big thing I think you always talk about with teams is play your game. If you play your game, you're in control. It's always going to be really strong. Yeah, goodbye, Blur Cam. Oh, it's back again. But yeah,
apologies, my phone got a call.
Not really allowing any kind of space for Legacy to thrive. And Stevie tried. He really tried on Dorado. You're looking to those picks on the hemisphere, denying him, and it did buy a lot of space for Legacy, and it looked better on that Dorado map, but it just wasn't enough to kind of stem the tide that was Pangolins.
And I think, that's, again, it's just, a little bit of experience coming through for Pangolins. Some very experienced players. I mean, Hemisphere's been in the scene longer than I have, and I'm old. Yeah. Elvin been in the scene since the 2018 or 2019 Odyssey run. Some really expensive or experienced players. Expensive players. Fancy Overwatch League coming in here. Get your pick'ems in. But yeah, I think, well played to both teams today. Pangolins just they weren't, other than Numbani, they were fairly contested maps, to be fair. So well played to both teams, but Pangolins just showing that little bit of extra quality that we will be hoping to see Legacy refine in the next few months.
Yeah, and as Legacy, yes, you go out of the tournament not winning a match. It's rough. But going forward, I think looking at this team, having seen its development, come next tournament next year, this could be a team that we're not looking at they're looking at just for that win. They're looking to top that group, and it's very possible if they keep going on the path they have been. You know, maybe with the coach that they have, it could help a little bit.
Nah, I hear he's pretty bad, eh?
So their role coach is also kind of Papego and DPS, to be honest.
But yeah, I think definitely, you know, there's lots of potential to grow, and as you know, you're looking at new players in the scene. You're looking at Zol, you're looking at Vacancy, Demon Pegasus there, you know, and Parasox, whose team experience is quite limited. Scars, who's playing an entirely new role in this environment that he only started playing a couple of months ago, and you know, it's good signs, but
yeah,
definitely, you know, you're looking at an interaction where these teams can potentially like grow quite a lot. And you know, for Pangolins, I'm expecting to see some of those players at the top next year, like for sure.
It's exciting Overwatch, I think, in local Overwatch, because we've always talked about, you know, at the moment, you know, the top teams, there's always been a golfing class, I'd like to say. You know, since I've started playing Overwatch like in 2018, you always knew there's, you know, these top 4 teams, and maybe like there's a bit of a mid, but then the teams at the bottom kind of lagging behind. But with how kind of these teams are progressing, they're not lagging behind nearly as much. Yes, you know, a lot of these teams, the top teams right now, what's really giving them that edge a lot of the time is the experience. You know, yes, in Pangolins, you have those experienced players, but some are still new. Whereas you look at, you know, likes, you know, Enigma, Beastie Boys, Odyssey, pretty much everyone has been, you know, in a team 2017, even maybe before that. So it's a big bridge to gap, but they're kind of bridging that, I'd say, a lot faster than what maybe some would expect.
Did you mean gap to bridge? Sorry, I just threw me for a loop. You said bridge.
Yeah, English is a language which I am decent at, even though, you know, I write. We don't talk about it.
Car says, everybody, we don't talk about it. Anyway, Terran, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at TerranLord and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lord of Terrans, where I very rarely stream, but trying to get the passion.
Okay. In terms of our wonderful producer today, he is on Twitter at ThePeachZA, and I think similarly on Twitch, but even though he doesn't stream much. YouTube. He's on YouTube. He's a defector.
Yeah, he got that deal, you know, it's lucrative.
You got that. That's sweet YouTube money. So yeah, those are his socials. If you can find a way to block him, just so that everyone's aware. Yeah, for me, you can find me on what is that platform? Twitter, at blur_RSA. Feel free to block me as well. Feel free to blame me for my camera. Or, you know, whatever Peach is putting on the fucking screen right now. Ooh,
look, at least
on the screen right now.
At least you survived the cast without DCing.
Yeah. From us, this has been ZA Overwatch, casting our Buffalo Cup. The knockout stages will be coming in the next few weeks. We will be seeing Pangolins facing up against either Dynacore Gaming or Eagle Eye Academy from the Group B games, and progressing from there. At the top of those groups, we're looking at Beastie Boys and Odyssey coming in first and second seed respectively for Group A, and Enigma and Beastie Boys again still to be decided this weekend, which I think is our other casted game of this week, on Sunday.
Yes.
8 p.m. Sunday. So join us for that. It should be a really good game. You'll get to see me feed. You can insult me on stream. Have a good time. Okay, well, yeah. Then thank you for joining us, everyone. This is, you know, a good game. It's really interesting to see these middleweight teams growing and finding their stride. And we definitely hope to see more of them in the months to come.
For sure.